Hi everyone. Hope everyone is looking at all the data of NEET PG Counselling 2024 and preparing your choice list for the NEET PG 2025 examinations. Thank you so much for the response to ZyNerd. We have had excellent response basis feedback from last year candidates, and so we've been pushing ourselves a lot to get the max info for you. Today we'll be running the NEET PG 2025 court case series. The first of it is what we'll be running. Most of the discussions today in groups, if you look at, will be on the domicile case judgment by the Supreme Court in the Chandigarh case. But this is a very critical case where a lot of directions have been issued by the Supreme Court to the authorities in April 2025. Makes a big difference as far as the entire NEET PG counseling landscape is concerned, and we are taking this up first. We will also come up with the domicile court case, which has a lot of sensitivity, a lot of issues. That will also be up soon in the ZyNerd portal. This is the ZyNerd special on the court case. So this is State of UP and another versus Ms. Bhavna Tiwari and others. This is the court case. Here the major consideration over here is transparently in NEET PG counseling process. Basically, merit, transparency and fairness are the words used by the Supreme Court judgment when they actually delivered the judgment. Impact on NEET PG 2025 results, the publishing of the results we have already seen. We will take you through that, and the counseling rules and information on the counseling, how it impacts, we will take you through that. How much of this is going to be implemented by NMC, how much of who is going to be responsible for implementing everything, we have our doubts on it, but this will be a very detailed session on the judgment, especially for candidates who want transparency, who want merit, who want right information from the college authorities. This is an excellent judgment which will have far reaching impact if taken up by candidates properly or by authorities, if authorities comply to that properly. So here we'll give you the case history, quickly run you through the case history, because the case history might not have much to do with the entire set of directions, but the directions are beautiful. Case history, UP High Court 2017 NEET PG. That was the first year when NEET PG was implemented in full. So 2017 NEET PG admissions court case is what this was. Ms. Bhavna Tiwari, again a doctor who has been along with one another doctor, filed a case against the Union of India, basically against UPDGME was the case, where they filed a case because they had certain issues with the rules of the counseling process. What happened? The petitioners were allotted the second choice. One candidate was allotted MD pathology, another candidate was allotted MD pediatrics, whereas their first choice was radio diagnosis. So they were allotted their second choice in round 1 of the UP NEET PG counseling. So round 1 of UP NEET PG counseling happened. They are allotted the second choice. The same choice was allotted in round 2 as well. They did not get upgraded. So they got the same seat. Even though upgradation was available, somebody else was allotted that seat in round 2. Which seats? The radio seats that they were looking at. Both of them had their first preferences radio. Now they could not participate in the mop-up round because they went ahead and joined the path seat and the pediatric seat in round 2. They went ahead and joined the seat, and UP had a rule saying that after you join the round 2 seat, you will not be able to upgrade. They had that rule in their prospectus. So that is why they were not able to update, and so they went to court saying that there is a lot of reasons why the seats were not allotted to them, not necessarily about upgradation. The RD seats, the radio diagnosis seats, which were allotted to other candidates, were actually blocked, was the intention behind going ahead to the court. So halfway through this, just before the mop-up, so basically they were not allowed to mop up because they were admitted, but there were other candidates. R1 candidates were allotted, R2 candidates were allotted. They did not get admitted or resigned their seats. Okay, so they did not get admitted at all. They were allotted but did not take up admission. These two candidates took up the admission properly because they thought that was a right thing. They did not, so they were allowed to participate in mop-up. They were lower rankers, ranked lower than these candidates. They took up the radio diagnosis seat. Somehow it doesn't look right, and they went ahead and challenged this. Whether it is right or not is not our concern, but that what happened in history is that they were allowed to participate in mop-up. UP changed that rule halfway through. Earlier they were not allowed. Halfway through they said, okay, we will allow them whoever is not admitted, and they were allotted seats, got better seats in the mop-up round of UP state counseling. This was the starting point of the entire case. Petitioners claimed that 80% of seats were vacant for mop-up, private institutes. 80% of seats, including government too. Government was a lesser percentage. 80% of seats were vacant for mop-up. large scale blocking happened, and they even intended to hint that this was along with the authorities involved. Maharashtra and Uttarakhand allowed candidates till mop-up round. So like that, you also allow us till mop-up round. So this blocking is the reason that they mentioned that they were not able to get their right deserved seats for their merit rank. They filed a case allowing them for mop-up round, allotting seats to them in mop-up round. So they wanted those radio seats to be allotted to them. This was which admission session? 2017 admission session. 2017-18 batch they were. What happened? The UP High Court, after a long prolonged discussion asking UP authorities for multiple information which was not given, then they later had to tell them you have to give, otherwise we'll file an order, etc. And after a long time, Jan 2018, when the batch had started, 6 months had gone into the course, that time the judgment came up from the UP High Court. And it was not necessarily because of their delay, they had to face challenges from the authority too. Large scale blocking is clear. This is the judgment. What was mentioned in the judgment? Admission process was flawed. 80% seats were blocked. They got the actual numbers after asking UP to produce it multiple times. 80% seats were blocked, changing rules midway. They allowed that allotted candidates who did not join to participate in round 3 or mop-up, right? Mop-up it was. So that is the third round where round 2 admitted did not participate, but these candidates were allowed to participate, changing the rules halfway through. So that happened. So which means all these were confirmed by the as facts by the UP High Court. Conduct an inquiry. So conduct an inquiry is what they had mentioned. Please conduct an inquiry into the entire incident. Take action against the erring officers from UP. Come with foolproof admission process for DGH. They had directed the DGHS, Directorate General Health Services, to come up with foolproof admission process. This actually lies with the DGME UP too. So an upgradation window between round 2 and mop-up. So after round 2, they suggested before mop-up, come up with an upgradation window for these admitted candidates so that this is sorted. This is not a kind of a stopgap arrangement only. Anyways, it is equivalent to a mop-up or a round 3 where admitted there is an upgradation. There is nothing much in that. It is actually equivalent to creating a round 3. But since there were rules saying you cannot move from round 2 to mop-up, the Supreme Court rules, joint candidates cannot, they said come up with something in between. We are not sure whether it is legally right, but they said do something on that. Time schedule is over. The most critical part is Jan 2018, time schedule for the entire 2017-18 admission sessions were over, and the candidates, 2 candidates who deserved a seat could no longer get a seat. Justice, even though injustice was done, even though injustice was done, you can't disturb others' allotments. Everybody else has gone in with 6 months. The 80% seats were allotted to somebody else. Their attendance is done. We can't remove them, etc. So we will not be able to do anything, is on what unfortunately the UP High Courts mentioned. Now 10 lakhs compensation was provided for both doctors. UP authorities were asked to provide 10 lakhs compensation for each of the doctors for following a flawed process, and they gave this directions. This is what UP High Court gave, and they directed the UP authorities to provide a 10 lakh judgment. Immediately, obviously, the UP authorities, irrespective of whether they are going to pay for a Supreme Court appeal or not, even if they pay 20-25 lakhs for the appeals, they will go ahead for the appeal, right? Because this is a judgment against the authority. So they went ahead for the appeal in the Supreme Court. April 2018 was when it was when the appeal came up immediately, but the first appeal, there was an order on April 2018. Jan 2018 was the judgment. And this judgment clearly said pay 10 lakhs. And also action against erring officers, etc., etc., new rules, look at new rules. April 2018, the Supreme Court came up with a judgment, interim order saying what? This order of the UP High Court is stayed. So basically, they said, the Supreme Court said, we are staying this order for now. We will take up the case later. What was the primary reason for UP to go against the Supreme Court order? It is that they were asked to pay 10 lakhs compensation to those 2 candidates. So claimed as per Ashish, what they claimed was, there is an Ashish Ranjan case judgment, 76 clause 2015. If you are interested, you can look at it. Supreme Court case judgment, which clearly said that round 2 joint candidates, this is a judgment which existed since 2016, round 2 joint candidates cannot participate in mop-up. So we just followed your orders, Your Honor, Supreme Court orders, Your Honor. So why are we at fault? Please stay this judgment, is what they claimed. They might have had other irregularities. How 80% of seats came into mop-up was a completely different question. But all they said was, we can't be accountable because you made this judgment. Now the stay happened. Supreme Court interim stay on the High Court judgment. So 10 lakhs was not supposed to be paid. UP was happy then. Till around Feb 2025, the case was not taken up. It came in, it was postponed, there was delays, information was not provided. They asked to include MCI or then NMC in the court case. They were implemented. NMC was also implemented, saying, what are the rules you have? Come and tell us. It is not one authority against the other. It is not one state authority. It is a common rule. So come and ask, and NMC was asked to report in Feb 2025 only, this year, around 7 months back. That is when the court case was taken up. The Supreme Court case had multiple arguments. NMC was implemented. NMC had to respond back on what they had done. The UP authorities were supposed to respond back on what they had done, and the judgment was pronounced on 29th April 2025 on that case. Note that earlier there was only a stay of the 10 lakhs payment and the judgment. Currently, there is a judgment clearly on that case. In addition to the judgment, they have also provided certain directions, which is what our primary concern is. The judgment on the court case is fine. It involves two doctors who did not get the seat that they deserve, but beyond these directions are what are going to impact us. The notified compensation, so they modified the compensation basis changes. Summary of the judgment is the 10 lakhs compensation was modified to a lower number, a lower figure, and certain directions were given to the authorities. What was the discussion during it? It is interesting to know the discussion. UPDGMA said that they have been acting since 2018. We have taken a lot of measures, etc. We have added security deposit, stray round allotted and did not join or debarred. Somebody who joined the course after stray round continued with the course and then resigned the course, they are debarred. Stray is online now. We have moved it to stray online now. All these are basis Supreme Court judgments later. UP might not have acted independently, but still they quoted all these in 2025. Resignations have come down now. They gave numbers. This is a very true thing. The number of resignations after round 2 have come down drastically in UP. They gave actual numbers saying, see, there is actually lesser irregularity now or blocking now. That is something that they have come up with. This is possible. Still, we don't know whether it is just not happened. We will not be able to comment on that. You know it from the data, but still this has come down is something that is true. NMC has been acting since 2017. This is the response of NMC, and this is also again true. It is both NMC who has acted, and the Supreme Court has also taken up cases and made NMC act multiple times. NMC or MCA earlier. So most of these you would see is results of Supreme Court orders making NMC act. They claim that they have been acting 4 rounds. Earlier, after All India round 2, if a seat is allotted and somebody did not join, then that seat was reverted to state. No more All India round 3s, round 4, etc. This was also stopped with 4 rounds, and that is a very critical judgment which came up because of a candidate taking it up. That they quoted. Security deposit forfeiture is something that they quoted. We have come up with that. All rounds are online now. Again, this is a Supreme Court judgment, but MCC took the credits to NMC. They went to the Supreme Court to include deemed in the online rounds. Otherwise, deemed seats in the stray round were allotted directly by institutes, resulting in a lot of non-merit based process. That they, to their credit, they did it. They went in, put up an IA and then got that judgment order. Round 3 upgradation is allowed now. What was the contention of these candidates? Round 2 to mop up upgradation is not allowed. Even without a Supreme Court order, by saying that we will approach the Supreme Court for an order, even if Ashish Ranjan case judgment exists that round 2 joint cannot upgrade, now round 3 upgradation is allowed. So that they quoted in the Supreme Court. They have come up with the rules. Round 3 joint candidates cannot resign. That is a rule that they have come up with. And 1 year debarment versus stray vacancy non-joining, stopping the blocking at that level after stray. That is something that they have come up with. And so the Supreme Court said rules were followed. Ashish Ranjan case rule was only followed by UPDGME. Post that they have taken action. 10 lakhs is excessive. Pay 1 lakh per candidate is what the Supreme Court finally said. The candidates, I'm not sure whether this is something that is that the candidates would concern now. Somebody who has taken up pathology or pediatrics who actually deserved a radio diagnosis seat and lost it due to blocking, who has also completed their entire course now. It has been 2025, might not even be worried about this, but definitely it is something that the Supreme Court has said, saying 10 lakhs, you bring it down to 1 lakh, giving relief for the UP authorities, which is a bigger thing in our opinion. So, bigger negative in our opinion. Certain directions to the concerned authorities. Along with this, they have said this is the case, but we want to give certain directions to the concerned authorities to ensure effective implementation of the regulatory to the revised counselling framework. Whatever is the revised counselling framework you have come up with over the last many years, we want to give certain directions to ensure principles of merit, fairness and transparency. These are very critical because this is what everything should be based on. Basically, when NBE publishes the answer key, they're supposed to base it on this and not based on trying to do something because of the Supreme Court judgment. We'll come to that too. Now, what are the directions? We will look at the directions and how this year, if these are taken up strongly with the state authorities, how merit, fairness and transparency can play a big part. You need to take it up with the authorities and ensure that this is happening in your states. If you are able to do that, or if you are able to take it up very strongly as a group, we will be able to ensure that properly whatever the Supreme Court directions are done will be implemented probably this year itself. National synchronized counselling calendar, a nationally synchronized counselling calendar, which possibly says that all India, we will come up with, we have already done sessions on it. If you have not seen it, you can actually look at the sessions. There will be always all India round 1, which happens first, and then state round 1, then all India round 2, then state round 2, all India round 3, state round 3, all India state, etc. So this proper sequence with the dates clearly mentioning when the registration should start, when is the last date of joining, etc. That sequence needs to be implemented is what they have mentioned. A synchronous calendar to align all India and state rounds and prevent seat blocking. What is seat blocking? Primary thing about seat blocking is one candidate being admitted in 2 seats at a time. Okay, so if you are getting a seat in all India round 1 and at the same time your state publishes the results, this might happen. This will happen every year. You can't take that away because you are providing your choices here. You are providing your choices here. All India publishes results. After that, as per timeline, state publishes results. Now you have 2 seats allotted to you. If this does not happen, upgradation, etc. will not happen. At any point in time, you might have 2 choices. But you should be able to join only 1 seat. Usually this happens in the form of either holding on to your certificates. So not many DNB institutes hold on to certificates. That's a big player in seat blocking. We will come to that later. But here, many states do not take certificates, again resulting in seat blocking. Now, this part of being admitted in only 1 seat, like if I just take all India round 1 admitted seat, I have to resign that seat and only then join the state seat because state will ask for originals. That process is something that needs to be implemented. That is what is seat blocking, not 2 allotments at the same time. You might have 2 allotments at the same time because you are upgrading. But the second allotment, if you're going to take, you should resign your first allotment and only then go and take the second allotment. That is now achieved through originals holding at the time of joining the institute, which is not implemented in full by any institute. No direction, nobody takes accountability on that. That is something that is to be done, even though a synchronized counselling is done. Next, mandating pre-counselling fee disclosure by all private and deemed universities. We can't stop but think how this is going to be implemented, whether they will do that. Detailing tuition, hostel, caution deposit, miscellaneous charges. To the credit of certain states, they do that. They do that very clearly, and they also implement that. They have the authority as a state to implement that, and they have the will to do that. Certain states, but many states we don't see this happening. How this is going to happen? But the Supreme Court has given this direction. This is a very good direction. Detailing out these is something that the Supreme Court has mentioned as a written record. So that is something that we can rely on. Centralized fee regulation framework under the National Medical Commission. Currently, how the fee regulation framework works is, there is, for deemed universities, there is no regulation framework, even though NMC Act prescribes 50% of deemed university seats have to be equivalent to the government fee. There is no regulatory framework today because deemed universities have gone to the Supreme Court again and stayed this entire decision. Bihar is trying to do 50% for private. We don't know how that will happen, but this for private too. This is for private and deemed 50% needs to be as equivalent to the government fee is what the NMC Act says. Nobody has taken it up beyond then. The Association of Deemed Universities and Private Institutes, they have gone to the Supreme Court, got a stay. Nobody is worried about that. So the fee is remaining as such. Now here 50% is one. Second is, for the remaining 50%, deemed can have their own fee. Can they do it? Who regulates that? Currently, there is no regulatory authority. For the private institutes in state, there is a High Court judge, Honorable High Court judge headed committee which needs to be there. the fee regulatory committee exists in many forms, but a centralized fee regulation framework is what has been suggested. Not a statewide framework, but a centralized framework, at least for the deemed universities. If this comes up, then there is a possibility of regulation or a possibility of making sense based on every institution, or the fee making sense based on every institution doing it on a non-profit basis. Actually, permit upgrade windows for post round 2 for admitted candidates. So to shift to better seats. So after round 2 admission, a candidate needs to be permitted to shift to better seats. That was the issue there in the case, right? That window needs to be permitted without reopening counseling to new entrants. Now, this is going to be a small window, or this is going to be round 3 as currently happens. As it currently happens, in round 3 in many states, fresh registration happens. In some states, it doesn't happen. So, how is it going to be? We have to check on this, but this is a direction that has been created which clearly mentions up to after round 2 there is one upgradation which is possible, which it gives to us. Publish raw scores, answer keys, and normalization formulae for transparency in multi-shift PG examinations. So this refers to multi-shift NEET PG examinations. We were not clear whether NBE will take this up because they are known to get around many of these directions by looking at such smaller terms and looking at getting out of actual responsibility. Now, multi-shift NEET PG examinations, this year is a single shift examination, but still it is good to see that NBE has come up with the answer key. But we'll also touch upon one point there. We are not sure how the NBE will implement it. We'll have to touch upon that. So these 5 are very critical. You can go through this, and these will ensure that at least this and this will, if we avoid seat blocking and have the fee information, that will be really good. And enforce stricter penalties for seat blocking, including forfeiture of security deposits. This is possibly not a strict penalty at all. Nobody is worried about 25,000, 10,000 now. It does not carry any value as far as we can see. Possibly around 10 to 15% of candidates it makes a difference. And even when we approach counseling, we tell them that the security deposit versus the value of a seat is higher. Anybody would see that. So this security deposit versus value of a seat is different. So we always tell candidates, you look at somebody else, they will value that. But whether it results in stopping seat blocking, we are not sure. Wrong choices, it stops to an extent. Seat blocking, somebody decides to block a seat for somebody who might pay in lakhs. 10,000 is nothing. What we say is security deposit will stop in filling wrong choices for a genuine candidate. That is what is happening. So difference between seat blocking, stopping seat blocking versus security deposit versus ensuring right choices versus security deposit, which is what is this intended for. That is something possibly they did not look at, but that has been mentioned. And disqualification from future NEET PG exams. If somebody is found to be blocking seats, disqualification for repeat offenders only. Why? I am not sure why. Even if you block for the first time, you should do that. But and blocking, blacklisting of complicit colleges. This does not happen to the greatest extent like before, because currently every counseling is online. So there is no seat that is directed to an institute. Some institutes, some states like MP possibly still have candidates in the last round going to the institute, etc. That needs to be stopped. Unless that is stopped, you will have complete confusion in the last round, or a mechanism needs to be provided to make that foolproof, to ensure that at the institute level nothing happens, everything is done online. But there are other areas of candidates, colleges blocking seats till the last round with people has come down to a minimal extent. Very easy to identify. If there is a top ranker who goes ahead and takes a seat in a private institute, a radio diagnosis seat at the top, whereas he can get a radio diagnosis seat in the top institutes across India, you will clearly know that it is a blocked seat. 90% of it can be identified from the pattern of allotment. And if you are looking at every seat and looking at the pattern of allotment or pattern of how somebody has behaved throughout the counseling, ZyNerd has the data and you will be able to know that. It is not difficult to figure that out, except for most of the cases you should be able to identify. Very rarely you can beat the system without data being available. Implement Aadhaar based seat tracking. Aadhaar based seat tracking, we are not sure why this is mentioned, but That is what they have mentioned to prevent seat holdings and misrepresentation. So basically what they are trying to say is, if somebody is holding a seat in 2 different counselings, use Aadhaar to track it and use Aadhaar to specify misrepresentation, etc. This does not happen to a huge extent. With the NEET PG exam to admissions process being a little stringent, we don't think that is happening. Even if you implement Aadhaar based street tracking, it will still continue to be the same, because it is only an additional valid ID validation, which is where the fraud can happen. But we will have some solution for this later. Whole state authorities and institutional DMEs are accountable under contempt for disciplinary action on rule or schedule violation. This is again very critical. Schedule violations happen to a great extent in some of the states. Continuously it keeps happening. They do not adhere to the schedule. They complete their choice filling even before All India, resulting in candidates getting a disadvantage. They extend their results even beyond the timelines prescribed by NMC, and because the candidates since the candidates the candidates cannot go into All India, cannot look at the state results and take a decision, etc. They do all sorts of things. Sometimes state high courts also delay counselings through their directions, in which case we are not sure how that is going to be, that is going to result in this, how the DMEs will take in contempt when a court direction impacts that. So now this is also very critical. Timelines, UP, it happened last year. If you're from UP, you would know that UP could have delayed their registration of round 1 by a day, round 2 by a day, UP state round 2 by a day, so that candidates would have made a choice between All India round 2 seat and UP round 1 seat. Many would have moved to UP, from UP round 1 to All India round 2 seat without losing the security deposit if UP state round 1 and 2 had delayed by a day. And it was also possible within the NMC timelines. For some strange reason, they did not allow. Many had to lose their security deposit or could not move on to AP round 2, which impacted UP candidates only. So we don't know why state authorities do such sorts of things when it benefits the state first. So that is something that if somebody takes it up, that will be really good. Adopt a uniform counselling conduct code across all states for standards or standard rules, eligibility, mop-up rounds, seat withdrawal and grievance matters. Very superb, actually, a direction. I'm sure they have put in a lot of thought into it. If that is common, it becomes very simple instead of looking at hundreds of different rules. Mop-up rounds do not exist now. It is round 3, but that is how it should be. Set up a third-party oversight mechanism under NMC for annual audits of counselling data, compliance and admission fairness. We do this for ZyNerd every year, an annual data where we actually do a check on how the data is, whether each state has done it properly. Is there somebody who is in the NMC PG final admitted list who is not in the allotment list? Everything we do it for our end to ensure that our data is right. Also to ensure that to see whether there is a rule which we have missed across years. This is pretty easy with the data available now. If that happens, that will also come up really well. We do that every year. We have a mechanism to do that every year. If that happens also, it is very good. Now, what is the response after this judgment? NB's responses on publishing raw scores. This was one of the directions, right? And normalization formula and transparency. So, NB has said that you have to publish as per the 29th April judgment. In compliance with the above directions, answer key will be published in the portal, and it will be the correct answer key and the response marked, and the what will be published, because the sections are different and the order of choices A, B, C, D or whatever was given, that was different for candidates as well. It was online. So in that case, the questions, correct answer key and responses mark should be displayed along as per the sequence in the master set of question papers, in the master set, not in the current set. So this is what they mentioned. But then they came up with a correction notice correcting one part. This was a correction notice that came up. They're correcting one part. The question ID part was corrected there. So here they said, instead of questions, they mentioned question ID. This is something that we are not sure. So we have, our questions are basically for NB. Shouldn't the answer key be released before the results? Obviously, if the answer key is released after the results, you're complying with the Supreme Court order because they did not give a timeline. Very good. But what is the purpose is a question. We don't want to rake it up saying you publish it, etc. But we obviously know that after the answer key is released, there is going to be issue. So whether or not we do it, somebody else does it. If an answer is not right as per a candidate, obviously there are going to be issues. So answer key publishing, like in UG, if it is done prior, it is always good, and a mechanism is provided for grievances. That is always good. setting up a system for grievances rather than you come up with grievances and let us all go to the Supreme Court is not a very good option. When will this be published? A system, April 29th, they knew that a system had to be set in place. They were relying on the multi-shift examinations part and saying, okay, we will not do that, etc. Because the judgment was there by then. Judgment on single shift was there by then, but 3 months we are still developing a platform. We are not sure why. Are the questions going to be displayed? Because they have modified this to the question ID. We believe that the questions are going to be displayed. We believe that they would not be very silly to assume that if you put up the question IDs or something, nobody will be able to crack the questions at all. So unlike what they came up with, the silly argument that they came up in the Supreme Court earlier, saying that if I display the question branch within 5 years, all the questions will be over. We know how many Marrow has. So that is possibly the silliest of reasons. We are waiting to see if the questions will be displayed. We will be very surprised if they think they can save some, the questions will be confidential if they don't display. Already every recall is out. So will this create another set of issues again? That is something that we expect actually. So irrespective of whether we come up with this video or not, some question is not, answer is not right. Every year in UG also this happens. Minimal impact maybe, but that might come up with NEET PG for the first time given the pressure that happens. Finally, process changes by MMC. This is something that you can if you come to this end, if you see that there is something that is possibly happening, please make use of it. Is what the next 5 minutes will be about. Okay, please make use of it in your state. Ensure that there is transparency, because this is hot, the Supreme Court order. Use it to ensure transparency so that merit-based allocation happens in your state. Now, nationally synchronized counseling calendar is published. We'll take one by one those important critical directions and tell you where, probably give suggestions to you on where there is an issue. So this is published every year. The synchronized calendar is published every year. The issue is not with publishing the calendar. The issue is with the schedule violations of the state authority. The state authorities don't do it on time. At times NMC also delays because they do not have the seats on time. They have delays in terms of technical issues, etc, etc, etc. So who will hold responsibility for asking these questions? All these directions, 10 directions almost, have been given mentioning we direct the authorities. The respondents in this case include the Union of India, the National Medical Commission, which was implemented later, and UP State. UP State is not there, no, because these directions are for authority. So NMC, Union of India, and beyond that the state authorities should also be there, but there is no clarity saying for each of these who is responsible to ensure that this is done. NBE took up responsibility by the answer keys because they cannot say somebody else is responsible. So if state authority violates, will it Union of India or NMC? Or once again, like every year, I am a candidate, I have to go back to the court, so it will end up being the same same story every year, saying okay, yeah, the rule is there already, the calendar is there. The issue is with the timeline violation. So who will take it up? Again, candidates, it is going to be the same story. Pre-counseling fee disclosure, but candidates can take it up. Even right now, candidates can take it up to ensure that the state gives a proper timeline and adheres to that. If they are strong to say that we will take it up later, the state might adhere. Pre-counseling fee disclosure. Which portal should I look for pre-counseling fee disclosure? There is no portal saying the disclosure for all the states. Who's going to stay? All the institutes, especially this is for private and deemed institutes. We know that. No common portal because deemed comes under MCC, All India Counselling. Private institutes come under respective states. So will each state have a portal where the institutes will give the data? MCC has the participating institute info, one big bunch of info, which has one fee structure, admission, amount to be paid at the time of admission, one number. But what has the NMC said? It needs to include caution deposit, miscellaneous fees, hostel fees, etc. So who is going to ensure that the data is going to be there? 4 states, only 1 or 2 states have taken this up actually for PG counseling, UG counseling. Surprisingly, the state of Tamil Nadu has taken up where hidden fee is huge. They have not mentioned the hidden fee. They have just mentioned this. They've asked each state, each institute to give them the actual 4 categories: miscellaneous fee, hostel fee, caution deposits, etc. in a number to each institute. They have given a number. Now that is good effort. But will each state do it? For deemed universities, who will do it? Will MCC come up with the portal to give us all that information? We don't know. Who is responsible for the hidden fee? Beyond this, the issue is not only declaration of fee. When there is an additional fee that is asked, who is responsible for the hidden fee? And more importantly, what about the stipend? NMC was gone very soft on that. They were very particular, saying to publish the stipend every month, and every month the states were publishing the stipend, institutes were publishing the stipend on the website. Today we go in, even 25% of institutes don't publish the stipend as per the NMC directions. So nobody publishes stipend. NMC said states you can act if an institute is not publishing the stipend, and the actual stipend published versus actual stipend got. Who's going to take it up? Okay, who's going to take it up? Will there be a body which will take it up, saying if a student complains saying that actual stipend is not published, will they strongly stand with the candidate and ensure that actual stipend is published? Who's going to take up the cases where a particular institute has a bank account in the name of the candidate, they put in the money and then recover it from their access? Who's going to take up the institutes who will ask for the complete stipend at the time of final practical examinations to clear your thesis? So those are questions which still remain unanswered here. So, and as per direction, upgradation to be allowed post round 2 for admitted candidates without reopening the registration. So registrations are not reopened. In that case, there are certain states which don't follow the rules. For example, Karnataka says if you have been allotted a clinical seat in round 2, you can't participate in round 3 or mop up. They call it round 3 or mop up, let us say. Now this is a rule which is completely different from different states, and this is exactly the rule that was challenged in UP. A candidate was admitted properly, allotted, admitted, I wanted a seat. Let us say it is a pediatric seat, the second candidate. There is a radio seat available in mop up. Somebody above me took up the seat and left the seat. Should I get a chance to go for it? Why is Karnataka stopping them? It might become an end process, but at least till round 3, which by Supreme Court directions, everybody is now allowed. Will Karnataka change that clinical upgradation? Because somebody is sitting here, somebody at a lower rank is getting a seat. Merit-based allocation is what Karnataka calls it. Is it, or will you follow the Supreme Court order? What about fresh registrations in round 3? Will that happen? Some states also don't allow round 2 to round 3 upgradation. If you go to round 3, I think Chandigarh doesn't, GMC Chandigarh doesn't, or maybe I'm not sure if Jammu and Kashmir allows. So you have to let go of your state seat to go into round 3. So why should you let go of your seat? You should hold your seat and go on to a better seat, because that is merit-based allocation. Otherwise, what happens is you risk to move on to the next round, or a lower ranker will get a seat because you have been admitted. So is that the right process? That there is a Supreme Court order which will help you in saying that this is what needs to happen. Admitted candidates should have another opportunity. And what about fresh registration in round 3? They said without reopening registration, All India, etc., they reopened the registration in round 3. So without reopening registration, with the same set of candidates, somebody moves out, you give it for the same set of candidates, which is a good suggestion. Because somebody is blocking the seat, they will move out. Somebody else will get the seat. How many times it happens, it is a very difficult thing. It will be never ending if we continue to keep doing it. But once, will that happen? Will MCC change its rules accordingly to allow upgradation after round 2 without adding on anyone else in the registration process? You might call it the same as round 3 without registration, or in any other form. How is it going to happen is what we need to wait. And seat blocking, Aadhaar implementation. Aadhaar implementation is very, very difficult. We know that. Another challenge on Aadhaar implementation, it will go in circles. But this is very simple. ZyNerd's allotment mapping, everything is available there. We know that how many candidates have been allotted seats in one counselling and another counselling. There have been candidates who have been allotted 1 seat in one counselling in round 1, 7 seats in other counselling. But the thing is, they will choose only one. This is not seat blocking in our opinion, as we said. They might have made the choice because some candidates, if we give the benefit of doubt, some candidates might have made the choice because they don't know what they will get in 7 counsellings. But the end of round 1, they will be admitted in 1 seat, and the rest of the counselling seats will be available in round 2. But consistent patterns of this, I am doing it again and again, we will come to know that it is seat blocking. This is already available. For this, Aadhaar is not required. Nothing is required. Allotment mapping does it in ZyNerd. As far as allotment is concerned, you will be able to map in ZyNerd today. What? AA rank is the only requirement. Aadhaar will help in identifying whether the person who wrote the exam versus the actual person, that kind of misrepresentation which is mentioned over here, Aadhaar will help. AA rank is more than enough. Every state has this publishes the results with AA rank. Otherwise, we get it somehow. So we already do this in some form. But one addition might make a big difference. Admitted list. If a candidate has been admitted in all India and 2 different states, today we don't have the data. Allotment might happen, one state admission is fine, that is as per rules. The other seats will come to second round. But if I have been admitted in 2 states and 1 in all India counselling, somehow because DNB institutes don't get my originals, Karnataka doesn't ask for my originals. This happens every year. A candidate holding 2 seats, and it is a disadvantage. How will we come to know? Only if the admitted list is shared transparently across India by every state. Who will give this direction? Because it says authorities, nobody will give that direction. So that is something that everyone we're looking at. This data goes to MCC. Basis the Supreme Court order. Admitted candidates list of every state is shared to MCC. MCC also shares it to every state in round 1, round 2 and round 3 where removal happens, it is published to us. Why can't they publish it for round 1 and round 2? It will be transparent. Everybody will come to know who is admitted in what seat, and we will also come to know how many seats somebody is holding. Allotted and admitted. Admitted, if you are holding 2 seats, immediately you can take it up. So that results in transparency. We will also know which topper is blocking seats working with colleges. Very clearly, blacklisting can also be possible because you see a pattern, we know how it works. This we cannot 100% get every information. Obviously, some of them would be interested is what they say. We cannot pin it upon them. But this at least creates a fear that for the candidates to be complicit with the colleges. Colleges cannot do anything because candidate has to fill in choices today online to get a seat. Unless candidates are complicit till the last round, because every round is online, nobody can block a seat without the candidate. Earlier it used to be you block a seat with some candidates through offline methods used to be there too, so that the patterns are not clearly visible. Now every data is available for us to crack, provided this admitted list is published by all states and by MCC in every round, at the end of every round. That process makes it easy. Uniform Counselling Conduct Code, obviously everybody is waiting for this. One rule video is sufficient instead of us having to do one rule video from all India, 32 rule videos for state, throughout strategizing everything. Obviously we are experts in that. We will be doing that in terms of gathering information, trying to figure out every part of the rule. But our job is made simple. More than that, it is very, very simple for the candidates if they come up with this. Our need might not exist, but this is excellent for the candidates. If this comes up, the Uniform Counselling Conduct Code, if there are rules clearly put up, we know in and out of where the challenges are. If they are put up very clearly, that will help the candidates. We are not sure how many of these will be implemented now. Summarizing, we are not sure how many of these will be implemented now, but we are taking up the entire part. Proper rules, uniformity in rules, adherence to the schedule, fees, stipend, information. Bond is fine, bond is also required, but central bond policy is also not implemented. There is a ruling direction to the Supreme Court to the NMC by the Supreme Court to come up with a uniform bond policy. Process for that, they have not taken it up. And seat blocking, annual, they are sitting silent on that. So seat blocking and annual audit for third party. If this is done, it will be really good. So what we consider is obviously the domicile court case is something that we will create a lot of stir this year. But this is something that benefits the candidates, whether you are on either side of the domicile certificate case. If you want counselling by merit, the entire thing gives us a good structure to rely on. Who is responsible for this? By mentioning authorities as a whole, Union of India, NMC, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, or will we leave it to the state authorities or finally to the candidates suffer again, because they have to take it up every time, because no central authority is holding responsibility or no authority is holding responsible. Hopefully, if there is something, this will be taken up by the Supreme Court again. If there is something that is taken up, not that there is a delay, but a delay which is good is also good. You get a better seat, 2 seats better. You waited for long, but because of a 10-day delay, if you get 2 choices better, that is going to impact your career. If somebody takes it up when there is a problem, then, and if some of these are implemented, at least the fees, stipend, bond, proper rules and stopping seat blocking is implemented, you will get far better seats. So from that front, hopefully something happens. There could be a lot of contempt petitions we see. The information is available with everyone, starting with fee disclosure. If there is a contempt petition, obviously every state will have to do it, so we might be able to wait for it. The problem here is, beyond that, when you go to the institute, whether they follow or not is a problem, but we have to wait. The directions do not mention NEET UG, but they are clearly for NEET PG. The directions are for postgraduate courses very clearly. So Union of India or NMC, do they have a plan? And it is, the unfortunate thing is the states are not parties to it. It is not that Union of India is the one which is responsible. State authorities are also responsible, but this direction says authorities, states are not part to it. So contempt cannot be on the states, or states have to be implemented later. So somehow, and again a contempt might be on the Union of India in case schedules are not followed, or somebody takes it up very strongly why field disclosure has not happened, or some of these clear directions have not been followed. NBA has started, which is a very good thing. We will need to see whether NBE gives us the questions which is actually the actual in letter and spirit idea behind the merit, fair, transparency terms used. Hopefully that happens soon. Thanks a lot for watching. You can connect with us for any queries on this case, and also we'll come up with the domicile case. Domicile will be a pure history without an opinion. These we have put in a lot of opinions on how it can happen, etc. because this is for every candidate. On the domicile case, obviously your candidates will be on both sides. There will be arguments on both sides. We will come up with the exact history and what has happened in the domicile case soon. Thanks a lot for watching.